at Encore recently who use Zap on the Netflix show Black Lightning. They use it exclusively in Nuke. It's really great just to do tons of kind of superhero kind of like looks, or you could use it for, environmental things. Just like all Sapphire effects, you could go into the preset browser, and here you just have tons of really great presets. Again, this is the original Zap filter. So what's kind of fun is that, people don't really think of using Zap for this kind of thing, but you actually have all kinds of different looks that you can create with by playing with the various parameters. You can create kind of, gun elements and ray guns and things like that. So really recently, and also I'll also mention this is a important point is I'm in the SZap. You can sort of see the parameters controls here. There's a lot of parameter controls, whether it is to play with the branchiness or play with wiggle and the length of the lightning bolt, things like that. So let's look at UltraZap for a second. So this is UltraZap, which is brand new, again, found under Sapphire Render. Is you're going to have UltraZap, which has lots of really cool features. And the team from Sapphire did a really nice job on the features here. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through a little bit of UltraZap. And then we're going to ultimately show you how I use this on a kind of fun animation project. But if we look at the UltraZap preset browser, again, presets in Sapphire are cross hosts, which is really cool. You can really create some very cool looks. Ben, I think you created some of these, and I know John Dickinson also. What you're going to kind of see is that you can actually, within the one effect, you can have multiple bolt generators. And that it can be very, very fun to play with. So let's close that. And here in the UltraZap, just kind of show you, if I go, say, for like the bolt structure here, I could add more bolts very quickly. Obviously, you can change the color parameters, but that's nice here. Now you have a taper start and taper end, and you have looping as well. So if I go to the bolt animation here, you can basically start playing with the speed of the loop. And then if I preview that a little bit, you're going to start seeing that these bolts are going to loop along the path. And then, as I mentioned, you also have a secondary bolt structure here in Zap. If I turn this on, you're going to see a second element of different lightning here. And again, you can play with the branchiness and many, many parameters here. Finally, down here at the bottom, you also have Ultra Glow, which is a new effect which is found in Sapphire. And you can get some really, really beautiful glowing looks with multiple, it's almost like I don't know, sort of like a master glow where you have a secondary glow with as well. So you can really get some very beautiful looks in just the glow, and it's all combined into this one effect. So that's kind of just a really quick overview of UltraZap. And before I show you, I used it just to kind of create a fun little animation here to kind of show you how we'd use it on like an environmental kind of shot. Here, let's go full screen here so you can see it here. But I added just a couple bolts of lightning with the UltraZap, and I also just kind of complemented that here just to kind of show you. Let's look at this. This is that project. But every time I added a Zap filter, so here's like the Zap right here on the bottom. I also above it on an adjustment layer, I added the S flicker, which is just a great effect, just to give me a little bit of, that the lightning, when it hits, that the entire screen is going to flicker on and off. That's just a little quick tip, and really make that look a little bit more realistic. Obviously, sound effects would help a lot here. I'm not the police academy guy. I could make my own sound. There you go, Ben. Thank you. Yeah, Ben and I, when we're at trade shows, we like to make our own sound effects. Pew, pew. But let's also see. I've also here added, just for fun, on this adjustment layer, I did add BCC rain, which comes from Continuum. So the rain in the effect is coming from Continuum as well. So it's really fun to kind of mix, Sapphire and Continuum together to kind of get every look that you need. So let's move on a little bit. Another cool thing about UltraZap, and this is really neat, is that you can apply it to text layers. So this is really cool because you can basically apply a text layer and tell UltraZap to use your text outlines. So there's a couple examples, and here on this one After Effects layer, I have a UltraZap. Let's go down to the bottom and I have it set to zap only, but if we set it to screen, you're going to see that there's my text element that I just created in After Effects, right? So we can edit this, change our text and stuff like that. I just have this set to zap only here. And then what you're going to see is it's just stroking the After Effects text element with our zap, elements here. And the way you set that up here is up here in the UltraZap pull down here, where it says the default would be this, and here's going to be back to my kind of, our stroke, which is basically, the spline-based elements from the Zap interface. But we can change that from UltraZap to use the AE path. Hopefully you guys can see that there. And now it's basically going to use the path that I've selected. In this case, it's the text element from After Effects layer. So this is unique to the After Effects. If you're using Zap in a different host, you are not going to see that AE path there. I just wanted to make that clear. But it's very, very powerful to After Effects users in the house. So that's cool. It's that UltraZap on text. Now the next thing here is we also have the ability to apply UltraZap to masks. So here's a couple of masks that I have just to kind of show you. And if I look at the effect, there's the effect again using UltraZap. We have one bolt in the first bolt structure. We have a couple bolts in the second structure, down there. So, and then we can basically, instead of setting that to our text, we can set this here to be all paths or just the selected path. So you're going to see there's my path, my mask 1, there's mask 2, or let's look at all paths. And then essentially we're going to be stroking the After Effects path with this kind of stroke that has many, many different properties, as well as the looping animation and all that kind of good stuff. Again, I'm not going to get into too much into the weeds about UltraZap, but it's just been a really fun plugin to play with for me since it came out. And I just love that you can apply this in different ways than just a pure like lightning kind of look. So here's where the creative inspiration happens. So I'm gonna show you, I created this project a couple months ago, and we actually have it on, I created a tutorial for this particular one. I love rotomation, I love like Waking Life and Scanner Darkly and this kind of looks. I've always just personally been a big fan of this. So I created this using Mocha. And After Effects and lots of fills and lots of tracking. But I created this animation in probably about one day. And that was really my goal, to see if I could create something that looked good, but not spend, I'm not a painter. Mary can draw, but I can't really, my drawing skills are not very good. So I'm going to show you, basically, when the Zap filter came out, Brian asked me, hey, Brian Fox, who's our director of product marketing, he asked me, hey, can you create something interesting with Zap, kind of like what you did with this animation? And so I took this clip, and I'm going to kind of break it down how I used Mocha in conjunction with UltraZap to create something that kind of ended up like this. And if you saw the Sapphire 2021 release video, you might have seen this. And let's just oops, sorry there. Let's go to full screen here so you could sort of see this. And it was really fun. And again, I probably spent about a day on this, but the goal here was kind of create a rotoscoped animation that had a graphic look using these kind of vector-based strokes. And many people don't think of Mocha as like a creative tool. People love it for tracking, for rotoscoping, and lots of visual effects. But I actually think, well, hey, it's you have tracked masks. Why not use them for creative uses as well? So let's kind of break down a little bit how I created this. And let's see here. Okay, so here's like a sort of like work in progress. And what I'm going to do is kind of start from scratch, maybe, and I'm just going to kind of break it down a little bit. So let's, in fact, I'll hide those here, and let's go ahead and yeah, we'll do it here on this clean one. So I'm just on layer 1 here. I have everything else turned off. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply Mocha. So we're going to go here and go under Boris FX Mocha. Many of you know that Mocha AE, it ships free with After Effects. We've been inside of After Effects since CS4. It's really great. And if you've never used Mocha before, I really encourage you guys to check out Mocha AE. You know, all you have to do is apply it to a layer, and pretty quickly you'll be into the basics of planar tracking and Roto with Mocha. I'm actually going to use Mocha Pro because maybe we'll touch on a couple other features. So to get into the Mocha interface, you basically just hit the Mocha button. It will take a second. Just bear with me for 1 second. And you're going to see here that this is Mocha 2021, which just shipped very recently. And Mary, after this demo, is going to be showing you some more deeper, Mocha tips, and probably cover Power Mesh as well. But I'm going to kind of just show you how we might go ahead and rotoscope and start creating some interesting animation using Mocha. So I'm using my X-spline tool here, and maybe I'm going to just do something like this on the finger here. And definitely, I wasn't looking for super accuracy when I created this project. I was really just looking to create nice splines that tracked quickly. So here's the shape that I've created. Again, it's layer 1, and a very good practice, especially when you're getting into a Mocha project that has potentially 50 or 100 layers, is name your layers. So I'm just going to say this is the finger track layer up here. And then what we're going to do is select that layer, and we're just going to go ahead and track forward. So I'm going to hit the track button. And as that's tracking, I'm going to ask Ben or any of the other guys here, are there any questions?
I think the chat's actually been sort of quite active, but all the questions have been answered so far.
Okay,
people are loving
great.
what they're seeing, though.
Okay, excellent.
Which is great.
So yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm just having fun tracking my finger there. At this point, down here, it starts to go off a little bit because of the motion blur, but let's just see if we maybe turn off shear. Just if I can kind of buy a couple of frames now, we're good at that point. So I might even do something like this, just kind of cheat it. Okay, we got a couple more frames out of it, which is nice. And then let's just animate. In fact, well, I'm not going to use this for Roto. I'm just going to use it for track, but okay, we're off screen at that point. So another quick tip is just right here, I'm going to mark an in. So then every layer in Mocha has an in and out. So if I play that back, you'll see it plays and it goes, and then boom, we're off screen. That little bar there is telling me that my layer is out. So what I ended up doing is tracking a lot of elements. Mocha is a planar tracker. Okay, so that finger I tracked with just shear, translation, scale, rotation, and shear. I don't want to track perspective when I'm doing Roto very often, although I might track the sunglasses with perspective, which I'll show you in a second. So what did I do with this? I'm going to hide this, and that finger track is still there. And then I'm going to find the frame where most of my fingers is visible. Let's do this now. Now I'm going to go and maybe make another shape, and this could be done with a freehand shape. If I just click and drag the freehand tool, really quickly, I could do something like this. Right click and close it. You could also use the magnetic spline tool, which is the same tool, but you just click down and very quickly kind of do this kind of tracing thing. When it goes, undo that here. When it goes to maybe here, I'll just click down and drag, and then go back onto screen. So you have lots of nice tools there. Let's add a point up here and right click to smooth out all my points. In fact, I might even delete some of these because I really just want like a simplified shape. And another cool thing is you can then, if you've used the magnetic layer, you're going to find this detail parameter here over on the left. And I'm going to turn that down. Sometimes you have to click away and then click back to it here. And then, yeah, just like I'm going to say the detail back to 1. And let's do that, add that point back in here and smooth again. But that's like a quick way that you can kind of create a rough shape with your magnetic spline, move the details down. And then you're going to take this spline, layer 3, we'll call this hand roto. I'm going to take hand roto and link it to my finger track. And then that's looking good. It's going to go off screen. Okay, so we have one keyframe. Let's go to here. Let's drag a couple of these. Now I'm just going to add a couple quick in-between shapes. I'm not the roto master that Mary or Ben are. Ben, they've both shared you guys many tips over the years. But my goal here is just to kind of correct some of these little roto drifts. But again, because we're doing this for chin and not for a full-on, VFX shot, I'm pretty happy with that very basic roto. And in fact, we can look at this like this with our overlay tools. And I would say, I really recommend that users, a lot of people use Mocha very quickly just for tracking, but learning these overlay tools, very, very, very useful for advanced roto work. So there's my cutout just to view so I can sort of see, okay, I'm happy with that. But look, down here, my thumb starts going off. So let's just kind of correct that right there. And again, since we're just demoing, I'm not going to kind of worry about the quality there. Okay, here's another cool kind of thing that you can start doing, which I did in my project. So that's hand roto. What we're going to do is then I want to create some more little fun details. Let's kind of sell this animation. This might be a little bit of my fingernail for his finger there. We'll take that, we'll call it fingernail. My spelling's terrible, as you guys, my colleagues know. I'm going to take that track layer and I'm going to link it to my finger track. And then let's just look. Finger's looking pretty good there. Down here, it's good, it's good, it's good. Maybe a couple keyframes. And we're pretty happy just to have a little kind of animated finger that is going to, yeah, by then it's off screen. We're good. Okay. I'll show you one more cool thing while we work on the finger, which is a lot of people don't know that you can use open splines in Mocha. So say I want to add some fun little details here well, fun is relative, isn't it? I'm going to close that spline with a right click. You actually do have some controls here. So we're going to go to spline and say open spline. And now I can kind of just smooth that out a little bit, kind of just like make some kind of element on the finger like this. Maybe and that could be, whatever detail 1. Let's not worry about the naming so much right now. Let's add a couple more little details.
Can we speed details a little bit because we are running out of time?
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I have a couple of details here. We have our splines that are visible, right? We've basically have those splines visible. And what we're going to do is we're going to save this. Now, what I'm going to do is within my After Effects project, what we're going to do is basically we're going to create After Effects masks. Now we have those masks, including our open splines. I did forget to link those, so we're not going to worry about that, but the same exact process, right? And then what I did would be to take these mask elements with M, simply Control C, create, save my masks. Let's make a new solid layer at the top. Let's paste my masks. Okay, so now we've just pasted our masks, and let's pull a zap that we've already had there. And then you're going to start seeing pretty quickly we have our animation. Again, we didn't animate those little details, but that was really the idea behind the whole thing. and obviously that would go on top of, you know, my full animation. So I'm going to kind of break it down for time. A couple of other elements. Here's the final project again, where what you're going to start seeing is every single one of these elements that you're seeing is actually is a I broke them down to have a lot of control. So let's like look at here is a solo, like here's all the hand elements. You guys can see that is filled with a black layer. Here's the glasses elements. I thought I might have time to do that, but I did not. I don't have time to really get into all. Again, that was a planar track. Just one planar track drove all those animated elements. Okay. And then, of course, you know, as we go down through our elements, there's one actually even more complex area. If we look at the original here, was the beard. And you'll see in the beard, I have about, I don't know, 50 different little strokes. And so I'll just show you how I did the beard really quick. What I actually did was I have the beard element, which was just a single track done in Mocha, and then that was attached to a null. So you could sort of see there's my null layer, just one element. And then what I did is I basically, you know, on an After Effects layer, I drew a bunch because it's probably a little quicker to just do it in After Effects than go back and forth to Mocha. I drew a bunch of little quick open splines here in After Effects, and you'll see that After Effects layer is actually linked to the null that I tracked in Mocha. It's very, very simple, but it was a really effective way to get this kind of cool animated look, and each of those strokes is animating separately. In fact, in the Zap parameters, you can tell the masks to apply randomly. So then every different one has their own little timeline without having to break those into a really complex layer. So I thought that was a nice sort of solution to kind of create a more complex animation without having to roto, you know, without having to track or create all those little elements in Mocha. The last element I'll cover, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Mary, is just like I also created these glasses, which again, just simple masking with Mocha. You know, these are just mask elements that were created in my Mocha project. And then what I ended up doing was filling it with a light leak, which was kind of fun, with a sapphire light leak, which is basically just to kind of give it a little bit of, you know, kind of lighting effect. And then I also applied the Ultra Glow, which has an edge detect kind of. I didn't really want to deal with animating and rotoing the fingers that were in the glasses, so I kind of cheated it with kind of some effects like that. And what we end up with again in our final, let's look at it on the split screen here. Oops, sorry. And what we have is our before and after final there. I'll just let it play a couple times. You know, I was able to create this using the Mocha tracking in the Roto tools, using the open splines, using freehand tool. I was able to create this animation in about, I don't know, about 6 hours, I think, maybe 8 hours, maybe a day, one day. But, you know, it was really fun to play with. And I think that's really the point of this particular exercise, is to kind of show you that, you know, you can use Mocha in a very, very creative way, you know, certainly in conjunction with a lot of the other Boris tools. That's my dog and pony, Mary.
I love it. It's a great shot. Like, it's very impressive. You've gotten nothing but love in the chat about it because it's, you know, it's such a simple technique, but it's actually an amazing look. So, you know, everybody loves it. And we've answered all the questions for Mocha because obviously I was in the chat and so was Peter, but you know, it's really impressive.
Excellent. Well, guys, let me stop sharing my screen here. Okay. Hey, well, I am back. Ben, let's give away a prize.
Oh, that's a very, very good idea. Okay, so the next prize is going to Sarah Oze, or I'm actually now becoming famous for mispronouncing everyone's names. So maybe it's Sarah, maybe it's Sarah, maybe it's Sarah. But congratulations anyway, you have won 12 months of the Boris FX suite.
Yeah, congratulations. Okay, well, this is probably the moment that many people have been waiting for. I know there was a lot of Power Mesh questions in the chat, and Mary has a lot of fans out there. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mary. Why don't you tell us what you're going to show?
All right, so I'm going to show you a sort of a beauty shot where I'm going to take a woman in makeup and add some freckles, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you what that's going to look like. Let's go ahead and share the entire screen one and allow. Okay. Can you see my screen? It looks like it's really way zoomed in, though.
It's looking good.
We can see
Okay.
it, Mary. Yeah, no problem.
All right, sorry. That was that's how it's displayed over on my secondary screen here. Okay, so I'm going to take this lovely actress and I'm going to enhance her look. So in this case, she's got some makeup on, but the makeup kind of blows away her skin texture. She doesn't look very natural. And so what we're going to do is we are going to convert this to some. I always push this a little far, so we're going to convert this to giving her some freckles and what we might say are like cute imperfections in her skin. Bump up the saturation and stuff, make the details in her face a little bit more vivid, and make her eyes a little bit more vivid and her lips as well. This is a really fast shot. It's like deceptively fast. And what we're doing is we're actually only using, I'll show you, in order to do this, we're actually only using one single clean plate across the frames. Okay, but here's why this works. What we're doing is we are pathing these freckles over the top, and then we're doing color corrections using Mocha. And of course, we're using Power Mesh to do this. So let's talk a little bit about Power Mesh. Now, one of the things I do want to point out about this woman's face is you can see that the motion of her face is, she's tilting her head all around, and that's no problem. But she's not tilting her head like, further than, 20 degrees to a 180 degrees range. So what I mean by that is like, she's not completely turning her head away from camera on either side of the camera. And that becomes important when you're dealing with planar tracking and even subplanar tracking. And if you have that sort of turn, I just want to let you know, you are going to end up having to do some hand animation to get around that, the same way you have to do with regular planar tracking or anything else. So, don't expect it to be a miracle tool. It's a great tool. So here's how this works. We're going to go ahead and launch Mocha, which we've applied as an effect on our timeline inside of Apps and Nuke. It works in all kinds of pieces of software. And let's talk a little bit about how we create this mesh generation. Now, I'm going to blow this away and start from scratch for a second, just to show you how we did this. My frame aligns on the last frame, so that's where I'm going to start my Power Mesh creation. Just because that's what I like to do. You don't have to do it that way, but I also like to start tracking where the face is, as usual in Mocha, most parallel to the camera, largest in frame, and least blurry. That still applies, okay? So I'm going to take my X-Spline tool, and we're going to drag our X-Spline tool around her face here. Now, the planar tracker, usually you want to track outside the area that you're trying to track, but notice I'm staying inside her face with my Power Mesh creation. That is important. Power Mesh is really sensitive. So if you take Power Mesh and you generate your points off the spline and you have your spline outside of the area you're trying to track, Power Mesh is going to leave points on the background because it's tracking subplanar areas and it's really sensitive. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my X-Spline tool. I'm going to use Add to X-Spline. You can use magnetic or freehand or whatever you want. But since I'm demoing here really quickly, and this is a garbage mat, we're going to go ahead and make some big garbage X-Spline shapes. All right, so we're going to hold those out just like this. The reason we're holding this area out is because A, I don't want this detail in my Power Mesh track, and B, she's going to blink and move her eyes a lot. The next thing I'm going to do is also hold out her mouth as well for the same reasons, okay? So now that I have my shape here, let's go ahead and pull these points down just like here. What we're going to do is we're going to, again, soften those shapes just like this, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to generate a Power Mesh to track this face. All right, and here's what we do to do that. We're going to track translation, scale, rotation, shear, and perspective, and mesh. When we hit mesh, a mesh is automatically generated. I don't want to use this automatic generation, so I'm going to switch to uniform. I'm going to hit generate mesh. Now this is a 4K shot and I'm using a 32 sized mesh, which is 32 pixels. That is just not going to work. So let's do like 100 and generate our mesh. Okay. Or we could do 60 or whatever we like. But it's important to have enough mesh detail to have a complex warp. But what you really don't want to do is you don't want to have a mesh that's so dense that you can't track it because it's going to take forever. You'll also get wobble in it if you're tracking too small of a detail. We have over here a smoothness generator. Now smoothness, we can do auto smoothness if we're unsure, or we can leave it at 50 for things like faces. For things like pieces of paper, we might want to crank that number up to 80 or 90. For things like water, we want to crank that down to 0 or 10, okay? So just think of it as how much smoothness is how much it adheres to the base planar track, because what we're doing in here is really cool. We have the Mocha planar track that drives the overall motion, and then on top of that, we have some subplanar motions. So we're doing subplanar tracking, which means we're tracking actually a lot faster than some, optical flow techniques. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit track on this. So I'm going to hit track backwards, just like this. And you can see it tracks pretty quickly for how many points it's tracking. But again, it takes a couple of seconds per frame to track. I am not going to make you sit through this whole track because I have already baked this cake for you. So let's just go ahead and let's blow this away. And let's reopen Mocha just so I have my original track. Here we are. And again, because it's a super dense mesh, it is going to take it a second to load. And here we are. This is what we end up with for our track, this very nice dense mesh. And I think I ended up using something like 60 for this. So there's our lovely mesh track. Now we're going to stabilize this because this is a stabilized workflow that I'm using in After Effects. It works in Nuke, it works in Avid, it works wherever. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to our stabilize module, okay? And we are going to mesh warp stabilize, unwarp on high. Okay, so let's turn this off. And what you'll see is that this is stabilizing my shot. Always ends up looking a little funny, right? Because we're holding the shot in place. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this stabilized data and we are going to apply it inside of After Effects. So we just save and close. And we're going to copy this effect and we're going to paste it here. And so what we do is we check our render checkbox, and instead of stabilize unwarp, we're going to hit stabilize warp. All right. So this is our Freckles frame, and we're hitting stabilize warp on it. And now what we end up with is let's let this play. Let it play. There we go. So now what we end up with is these freckles put on her face according to a still frame that we created of freckles on her face. Now, you can tell that because of our still frame, we have some things like some eyelash lines here down at the bottom of her eyes and other things that we don't want to keep on this shot. So what we're going to do is we're using that same matte that we took in Mocha, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to just isolate certain areas of her face, like her eyes, and punch up those details really quickly so that we get rid of any errors from our still frame that we used. And then I'm just going to slap a quick color correction on here using some BCC hue, saturation, and lightness. I tend to always punch it up when we're doing online demos just because of resolution over the internet. But what we're going to do is let's just fit this. It is fit. Perfect. We're going to show our before and our after. So really, really quickly, without having to do a whole lot of work, we end up with this lovely shot. The longest part of this shot was waiting on Power Mesh to track, which took about probably 15 minutes. So that is a really simple effect that you can use to do some really complex beauty work without doing a whole ton of work using Power Mesh. Now, we did have some questions about what do you do when you have. So in Nuke, I would use the Olympic export. I just saw that. In Nuke, I would use an Olympic export for this, honestly, because it renders a whole lot faster in Nuke when you do that. And it's the same workflow, more or less, but we have that on our website, or I can just show you really quick what that looks like. But we also had a question where somebody had asked, what do you do if you have somebody that's moving a lot? And I kind of want to address that, and I want to see if I can find it really quick because it was a good question. and it's a little bit, where is it? Give me 1 second to find it. There was a really complex shot that I had done, skin cleanup severe. All right. So this shot, I just wanna really quickly kinda show what's going on here. This shot I cleaned up, but there's a lot of head turn on this shot. Like he's turning his head quite a bit away from camera and back. So there's some really extreme motion. When you're using Power Mesh, to sort of get around using extreme motion, what I did is I actually did this in a lot of pieces. So I did a piece for the side of his face, like for his cheek where it was stretching. So anytime I had a problem, I basically patched that with a new Power Mesh over the top to get several different pieces blended together, and then I mixed those into, a single pre-comp in Nuke or something. You would do this as its own little node tree and then path it in with a merge over. There's 2 different ways to do this, but basically I patched in as much as I could in pieces to find the best results. Okay, so what we ended up with on this is, let's find our severe. Here we go. And so what we end up with is actually something that's pretty nice as a skin cleanup, but